Prior. Welcome to the Reluctant Agilist. I am here with Sara Doubleday. We've never met before until a few moments ago, so thank you for being willing to do this and so quickly just jump right into the interview.
Yes, no problem. Thank you so much for having me, Dave.
So Sara and I are going to be speaking at a conference together in a few weeks in Austin at the Digital PM Summit. And Sara's talk is called Chaos to Collaboration, Managing Reorgs, AI, and Change. We're going to talk about that in a second. But the first thing I have to ask, Sara, is I read your description of what you do at Sierra Interactive, and I completely don't understand what you do. I think I was more confused by the end. So how do you explain your job?
Yes, no worries. I think that probably other people in project management or operations might fall into a similar bucket as that, where, our job description's trying to basically equate to we do all of the things, we keep the ship moving.
Okay.
So
that would have been easier. Like, I do all the things would have been like, cool.
I wish. I've been trying to make that my job description for years and it hasn't worked out. But I am a creative lead at Sierra Interactive, which is a digital marketing agency. And essentially, I have been supporting our creative team, which runs from conversion rate optimization through to UX UI designers, copywriting, execution, really runs the gamut in terms of creative offerings, and really just supporting the team and enabling them to do what they do best, which is design, copy, creative, and clearing blockers out of the way for them to succeed. So that could be project management at times, that could be resource management, that could be coming up with new innovative solutions, workflows for the team. It's
therapist,
really
all of it.
Oh yes, yeah, of course, on an as needed basis.
Yeah. Okay. And the nature of the work they're doing, I mean, does it involve a lot of change? I know that your talk is about specific aspects of it, but I'm assuming because it's an agency, there's fairly frequent turnover in projects and clients and stuff like that. Is that true, or do you have just like stable everything?
So we have a smaller team on the creative side. Sierra Interactive as a whole is about 200 people, but we're about 10 people on the creative team. So I like to call us the little startup within the larger Sierra, where there's definitely a lot of change. Things are moving really quickly. There's a lot of opportunity to try new things, pivot really, really fast. So that brings with it a lot of excitement, and then also a lot of, oh my gosh, I've never done this before. How are we going to get through the next week?
And how are you going to deal with the onslaught of AI and how that's probably jamming its way into the creative process?
Oh yes,
in a very ham-fisted way.
There's lots of questions right now around how are we using generative AI to create imagery? How are we using it for brainstorming? Sierra actually has an AI task force that we're able to take advantage of to really maximize the tools that we do have available to us. So we're really trying to approach AI as less of an existential threat and more of a how can we make this work for us?
Okay, and are there specific areas where you've found it to be really beneficial?
Yeah, so specific to creative, we have found it pretty difficult to use it for any sort of large, like brand building, concepting, ideation, but it does really well at all of those more tactical skills, like, of course, synthesizing notes or helping reword things, come up with in like first drafts for design work and things like that, but haven't really found it to, replace our brains yet, which we're hoping will not happen.
So that's one of the things that I find with AI is it's sort of like this slow-witted young person that you're expecting to be able to hang out and do what you do, and it can do a lot really fast and a lot really well, but it can't replace that creative spark that people have. Like I feel like we need to take what it gives us and do better stuff with it. So it's like a supporting character.
Yes. Right? Something that is a great ego boost is to ask ChatGPT or a similar program, what can a graphic designer do that you can't do? And then it'll come up with this whole response of things that generative AI can't do that a designer is still able to do. So that,
like
whenever you need some reassurance. Yes. Oh gosh, some people still can't draw hands.
So I'm scared to ask it what it can do that a project manager can't do. That would probably be a little depressing. So I know your talk is about change and integrating teams. What is like the what have you learned that is sort of the most important thing to forming a new team when you get different people together?
Yes. So change is a tricky one because we're always talking about it. I've been to multiple conferences this year where the focus has been change. And despite it being something that we're so focused on and always trying to solve, it seems like nobody has that silver bullet to get it right every time.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a real thread to pull on there of why is it that we're not able to get our processes down when it comes to change, but then also giving ourselves grace through change, knowing that no two changes are created equal, even if they seem similar. There will always be bumps in the road and pivots that need to be made.
Do you think that we need to just accept that there is never going to, I mean, there shouldn't be a silver bullet. It's change. It's disruptive by its nature.
Yes, I think the more that we try to push change into a box of follow this 5-step process, do these 3 things, that's when we're really setting ourselves up actually for failure.
Okay. Could you give like a quick highlight of your talk without giving the main points away?
Yes. So I am going to be talking through recognizing the effects of successful versus unsuccessful change in organizations. I'll be talking through a tactical approach to facilitating and navigating change. So in that, we'll be sharing a case study that is really just another term for my life from the last 2 years, talking through 3 team mergers that I supported and helped lead, specifically on the creative team. And then really digging into how is AI impacting that, what other forces outside or within our control were impacting that merger, and then how can we transform change into a competitive advantage for our teams.
Okay. Were your teams all centrally located or all distributed?
They were all distributed. So we actually went from being a team that was based in the same area to expanding across the country.
Okay.
So that was definitely a change. And then these mergers also all happened at different times. So we would go through a change and then we would have to restart it to bring on new folks and new processes. So
Wow.
it was like Groundhog Day.
And so you don't even have when you said 10 people, I'm thinking of the places I worked where there was like the pod for the creatives, and it was like cooler than every other room in the building. And they had their special place that, the rest of us didn't. We felt weird when we went in there. But you don't have that because you're all virtual.
Yes, we are.
Okay. So what is one tip you can give people to form a team that is distributed, that is primarily creative in nature? I mean, does that affect the way that you form the team?
Yeah, I would say one of the biggest things is to not try to reinforce team building and communication the same way that you would in person. I think you just have to accept that it's inherently different working virtually than in person. We actually at SEER made the shift to fully remote work when the pandemic started back in 2020. We do still have an office, but for the most part, we're all still working remotely, even for the folks who are close to each other.
Yeah.
So you really have to kind of force those opportunities for more organic, casual connection, which that connection really serves as the basis then when you are under the gun, when you have tight deadlines, when you're all really stressed, falling back on that human connection that you have is really important. And that just takes extra thought and dedication to build.
Have you gone through any kind of activities where you've had the team members share like what their goals for themselves for being on the team are, or anything like that?
Yes, it's really important for people to see themselves in the team and for them to understand how they're contributing to the team, how the team's contributing to the larger company, especially this is true for everyone, but for creative, when we are, pulling from that well of inspiration, of creativity, if you feel like what you're doing doesn't matter or it's not having an impact, it just becomes that much more difficult to create something that is compelling and original.
Okay, and so you're their conduit to the rest of the org, I'm assuming, mostly, right?
Yes, I try to be.
Okay, so how do you go about creating that story for them? I mean, you're the one that creates the meaning for them and like their role in the company. If I was working there and I didn't know like why I was doing a thing, I would then be looking to you to show me how this matters to the large organization, right?
Yeah, so luckily, we also have a director of creative services who quite a bit of that is coming from her, and I am more on the process side of things and making sure that the vision that she has set for the team is really being lived in on the day to day. But I think it is really important in that daily life to make sure, again, that people are feeling seen and heard. So if something pops up in a larger team meeting, or if someone has a question about something, typically the core of that question is, how do I belong? Where do I fit in? And I really try to prioritize answering that question for people, because I even know for myself personally, whenever I have that question, it can be very disruptive and confusing to not have it answered.
To feel that level of insecurity. Yeah. I think that's most of the places I've worked. Well, you said a few minutes ago, vision for the team, and that I think of products as having a vision. When you say vision for the team, that's more of a company internal product that you're creating, right?
Yes. So we have, our 1 year, 5 year, 10-year goals as an internal team. That's not something that the outside world or that our clients are necessarily impacted by. But on the flip side, if we're not executing against that vision, then our client work and our external presence does actually start to suffer, because we're not living into that vision we've set out for ourselves.
So it creates like a compass for you and the team.
Exactly.
That's awesome. Okay. And they're all, I'm kind of stunned, because it's, when I worked in agencies, this would never have been part of it. It was like, do more work. So they're aware of this, and you have like conversations about, will this work, or will this process approach take us in that direction or away from it?
Yes. One of my favorite things about working at Sara and on this team is how small we are. So just really getting to have that frontline view into new processes, why we're doing something. Do we want to do this? Do we want to maybe try something differently? Sara is really a test it and prove it kind of a company. So if we have a new idea for something, there's been quite a few processes that have been born out of the creative team testing something, showing the ROI, and then that is a process that can then scale permanently across our team or across the organization.
Okay, that's awesome. So what's been the most frustrating part about having to build a team and then rebuild it and then rebuild it?
I mean, for me, I can't help but think of efficiencies. I mean, when I go out the door in the morning, I want to go to the places that I need to do chores at in like the right order, the right way. So to have to go through mergers multiple times and to not be able to merge all the finances at once or all the deliverables or whatnot, I know that I'm losing efficiencies, and that just for me always drives me a bit crazy. But I think that's definitely the most challenging part. But on the flip side, we learned so much from each merger that by the third one, we were pretty much in the swing of things. We were deep in change management. So in hindsight, I'm not sure if it was better to do it this way or for us to have done it all at once.
Okay. So because of the efficiency question, I want to ask you something about the teaming then. When I'm working with people, I find, and for myself as well, there is waste in the system that is necessary. Like it is, I'm doing this 3 times, but that's part of my way of protecting it or whatever. Are there any things that you've found in the system that any lean person would look at that and be like, why are you doing that again? Or what, why is that you have this redundancy built in, but that you have felt like or found that this extra thing that to an outsider might appear to be waste is actually crucial to this team?
That's a good question. Yes, we definitely found that along the journey of mergers. It's really easy as you are folding processes into a larger team to look at something and say, that's less efficient than what we've been doing so far, or I don't see the need for that and how it fits into the larger team, and to really quickly disregard it. But on the other side of that is a person that's been doing that for potentially years, and there's probably a reason why they're doing that. So taking that moment to stop and ask the person, instead of just seeing the process and say, hey, what are you getting out of this? What is the value? What would happen if we explored doing it in a different way? And then really having that conversation versus just immediately making a judgment, which is definitely my nature, because I put my efficiency hat on and then everything is suddenly black and white. There's no
you're
gray.
A project manager. Yeah, that makes sense. But
yes.
But there is, I mean, you said something that to me, having been ground under the heels of a number of mergers, seemed really odd. Almost like you're honoring the human individual that took the time to learn how to do something instead of just saying, yeah, we're not doing that.
Yes, a big part of the presentation that I'll be giving is just about treating people like people. Honestly,
Okay.
I feel like that's really where our change processes break down, is where we just see things as processes and as goals to hit, because at the
Yeah.
end of the day, it is people that are doing all of these things, and people will never be as efficient as AI or as a assembly line that's fully automated, but
Thank
like
God,
that's
though.
exactly, because there's also fantastic things that are born from that, and so we
Yeah.
have to work within the parameters that we have here, and that involves people, so we need to treat people like people.
Okay. I mean, I guess that's one of the things about, AI may be faster, but AI can't come up with the things a human, they can't make the leaps. I mean, maybe someday, but not now. It can't make the leaps that a human can. So you've been through a lot of change. You probably wouldn't, I'm guessing you wouldn't say you've mastered it, but you've been around the block a couple times with this stuff. Um,
Yes.
what is it that most people don't understand or think they understand, but clearly have wrong about the kind of changes that you've had to work through with these teams?
Yeah, that is a really great question. I think that a lot of people are focused on the expectation of moving from a problem to coming up with a solution to implementing that solution, thinking about it very linearly.
Okay.
But in reality, it is this complex web of looping systems where you're moving from a problem to sharing ideas to maybe those ideas aren't really addressing the problem. You're trying to align on solutions. You're announcing new ideas to your team or to your company. And then there are other people now that have to go and implement the vision that you have created. So
Mm-hmm.
it's sort of like this big game of phone tag or whisper down the lane.
Yeah.
And by the time people are living into the change or that you feel like you originally set out to create, there might be people that are already abandoning it. They're doing it totally differently. Maybe it's not even solved the original problem. So there's many points of potential system
Many
failure there.
opportunities.
Yes. Yes, that's a great word for it.
So it sounded almost like a design thinking approach to organizing humans through change, kind of.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, including kind of falling in love with the problem of getting these people to learn to work together and do stuff together.
Right. Really focusing again on the fact that people are people. They are not going to respond to your idea immediately, go and implement it. The first thing they're going to think is, how is this impacting me? And if you're
Yeah.
not answering that question, then whatever you're recommending will not be implemented.
Okay. So I want to ask you a question about your agency and maybe agencies in general, because what you've described is very different than, I mean, I loved the time that I spent in agencies, but it was a bit of a sweatshop kind. I mean, we all work 24/7. It was grueling. But it sounds like you've actually made an effort to create kind of a humane workspace for people where they can thrive in a healthy way. I don't know. To me, it sounds weird to say that. I don't
I
know
know
if
I heard
that's,
the question in your voice there, the disbelief.
yeah.
Yes. So I mean, I firmly believe that to build that kind of culture, that needs to come from the top down. I think it's really hard to work that up. So I
Yeah.
am fortunate enough to work at a company where that tone is set by our executive team. And that's something that we see them live into every day. And that makes it that much easier to trickle down into the teams and for us to really live into the values of, being better each day, uplifting each other, being transparent. And I think that ability also really fosters a really great community for change.
And I would imagine for recruiting and stuff, it probably helps quite a bit too.
Oh, yes, for sure. I mean, I have other agency experience prior to being at Sear and was definitely enticing to see what Sear had to offer around culture and just community compared to the experiences I'd had before.
Cool. Okay, one more question. What is the thing that surprised you the most about going through all this change? Like, what was the thing that, if you could go back and say, like, just wait for this part?
Oh man, I mean, it would be the fact that a year and a half ago, I was knee deep in this change, and now we're getting ready to head to Texas for the PM Summit, and I'm going to be speaking about that in a concise and completed way. That in itself is shocking to me because it felt at the time like we would never be through this change.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest thing is just realizing the day-to-day life of change, that it's not like a history book where it says the change happened, but instead just understanding, like the resilience and the commitment where I have to come to work every day, and I might be frustrated about something, but I need to make sure that the team still sees that I am behind this change, that I am here to support them through this change, and that takes a lot of energy.
Yeah, well, I mean, especially because you've got to maintain their health, but yours as well.
Yes, exactly.
That's a lot. Well, I'm sure they're very appreciative of your efforts there.
I believe so. Yeah, I have a great team that I work with every day.
That's awesome. All right, so just want to go back to the title real quick, so I have to switch the window. Chaos to Collaboration, Managing Reorgs, AI, and Change. It's going to be on Tuesday the 15th, 9:30 in the morning to 10:20 at the Digital PM Summit in Austin. Yeah.
Fantastic. Can't wait to see you there.
Me too. And if they want to get in touch with you to ask you questions or anything like that, what's the best way for folks to reach you?
Yes, I would say find me on LinkedIn, just Sara Doubleday. I'll be there. Happy to connect, answer any questions or chat.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you for making time for this, and I'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thanks.
If you learn to work the old way, but the new way is what you need, my job's to make that switch from